we have to find a way to make sure we're always showing up, right? Because that day we don't, and that person's watching, and it's just like, that can create that season of doubt in them. Like, wow, is this where I need to be, or whatever it may be? I don't know how it transpires, but imagine us as leaders, we show up with that energy every single day. That energy of like, not just I care about your work, but I care about you.
Hello, Profit First entrepreneurs and thought leaders. I am so excited today because we have a very special guest. His name is Ricky Venters, and Ricky is a very smart guy. He's not only the engineer of impact with an inspiring journey that he's going to share with us today, but he's also a mechanical engineer with a master's degree. So pretty smart guy. And he's actually got a professional engineering license. Now, Ricky, he uses all sides of his brain. He is actually an author of two amazing books. One called Live on E, which is the 8 elements to excel, engineer, and empower your life, as well as a book called Purpose Pioneers, How to Overcome Adversity, Survive Setbacks, and Thrive on Purpose. He's a co-host of a show called The Success Journey Show. And, definitely turn in. It airs across the country. And we're just excited today because we're going to talk about your personal journey and the growth that you achieve as an entrepreneur. Because I think all of us agree that none of us start the journey and end up the same, right? We all evolve as people and professionals. So please join me in welcoming Ricky Venters to our platform. Hey, Ricky, how are you doing today?
Hey, how are you? How are you? Thank you so much for having me on the show. Really excited to be here, Susanne.
We are so excited about that because, a lot of us profit first professionals, right? And I'm talking about you guys, not necessarily the accountants out there, but you guys are actually doing the work, implementing the profit first method in your business. You're finding that, this is really about growth and not just growth of your company or growth of your team. It's growth of you too, right?
Mm-hmm.
You guys have all heard the saying that we are the ceilings of our company. And today, Ricky's going to talk about how to pierce those ceilings, right? To go even farther, go even higher, increase more profits as you evolve to become the human that you're meant to be. So, Ricky, first of all, tell us, I always love the backstory. You're an engineer by background. And
Yes.
and now you help people engineer their impact in their life. Tell me about that journey and how did you become that?
Oh man, engineering. So as a young kid, both of my parents were in the engineering field. So they would come home and you'll see them putting circuit boards together. This is in the 80s, right? Early 80s. They're putting circuit boards together, working for the IBMs of the world, the Philips, all the bigger names. And I saw that and I was like, wow, I think I want to do that. And I went and I remember I was in college and I was like, man, what do I want to be? It was either becoming a doctor, because where I grew up in a small town. I think it was 2,000 people population. To this day, there are no stoplights in the town I grew up in. So to give you a context, right? So when I saw success was becoming a doctor or a lawyer, right? And so when I went, or engineer. So I went to school. I was like, all right, what do I want to be? I have 3 choices: doctor, lawyer, engineer. So I went in and I sat down. I said, I don't want to be a lawyer. I hate reading. Just be honest with you. I hate reading. Right. I went in and I said, well, maybe I could become a doctor. Doctors make a lot of money. So I went through the first semester and I just like, you know what? I don't think I want to be in school for 12 years. So I don't think I can be a doctor. Right. Then what was left was engineering. And I said, okay, what do I want to be? I want to be an engineer. I think this is going to be great for me. Love solving problems. Very good in math and all those different things. So I said, all right, let me find out what kind of engineer I want to be. So I went online, did a Google search, and I said, I forget exactly what I put in there, but it was something around engineering on Google. And this is when Google really just started taking off. So it wasn't as powerful as it is now. And I saw a helicopter and I was like, that would be cool to work on a helicopter. And it listed all types of engineers that may impact building a helicopter. So the aerospace engineer, they had mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, all that kind of stuff. I was like, oh, mechanical engineer. Let's let's do mechanical engineering. And that's how I chose mechanical engineering. And I went on my journey in engineering, and I loved it, met great people. But I remember I always gravitated to the leadership of it. So the engineering was fine and doing the designs and all that kind of stuff, but it was always, my questions were always going to one of the partners to say, so how do we get business? Like, what does that look like? How do we get our next project? How much are our fees? Like, do we set up our fee structure based off the square footage of the project? Do we set up our fee structure based off of the resources that we're using internally? So these are the questions I was asking when I first started my career. And I started being more excited about that aspect of it than actually designing, right? I started getting more excited about talking with the owners and talking about the progress of the project and making sure everything was going smoothly than actually sitting down and actually designing and writing the specs, right? So I looked in my career, and I was at that point where I was like, oh man, is this where I really want to be? And I stumbled across a book called The Millionaire in the Mirror. And that book just completely just transformed my whole outlook on life. Because mind you, before then, I still was under that doctor, lawyer, engineer projection and career. And I was like, oh man, what is out? I've been through college, I've been through grad school and all that kind of stuff, but still my mind was wrapped up around that. But after I read through that book, it really centered me around, hey, this is what the economy looks like. This is what contributes to the economy. And if you don't align yourself, one, with your gifts and your talents with your skill sets, right, it'll prevent you from really being laser focused in your area. And you won't be able to see that pinnacle where you can achieve. And I had to ask myself the real questions of, is engineering that thing for me? Right. And I realized at that point, it wasn't. And now, mind you, like, I went and got my professional engineering license. Now, people are like, man, but you got your professional engineering license. Now, here's the whole impact aspect of it. When I got my professional engineering license, which was one of the hardest exams I've ever taken in my entire life, I left that exam heading an hour and a half in the wrong direction going home. That's another whole story, right? But I took the exam and I got my license, not for the mere fact of, hey, I want to practice engineering, but I want to show that it could happen. And for me, for my upbringing, my background, for being an African-American male, walking in the that space of engineering, only 2% are of Black people that have achieved their professional engineering license. And I was like, I got to be able to do it, because I got to help increase that percentage so that people that are coming behind me, they can see, like, say they can do it. But even in that, that's why I even hold those letters behind my name still, not because I want to be an engineer, but because it represents what the possibilities and what people can do. So that all, I know it's a long way of answering the question, but that kind of all this kind of starts shaping my mindset around the impact side, aligning myself with how do I position myself to be able to give back, to help build businesses, to help advise people that are going into the business world, to help coaching and things of that nature, all because of that thing. It's like, well, let me share everything that I know, everything that I've stumbled through and that I'm learning, right, with those around me.
I love that, Ricky. That is so great. And yeah, I know that feeling of going the opposite way. Very metaphoric for your life. You're definitely doing a pivot with that. But yeah, those exams are hard. I remember the CP exam, my brain kind of being mush when I left that too. So I totally get it with that, and amazing accomplishment. And I love the pacemaking that you're doing, right? Leaving trails so that others will follow. I think that is amazing and really important too. Important work from that standpoint. So let's peel back a little bit. Let's talk about the topic at hand with leaders, right? We're talking to CEOs here. We're talking to business owners, right? And entrepreneurship, in many ways, it's a calling, right? It's a calling, and it's not something that leaves you ever the same as where you started. And let's talk about that. Let's talk about, just really taking inventory of your life, figuring out what needs to change in the business, and really identifying and where do you start with this journey?
No, man, that's a great question. Um, and the first thing that comes to mind, as you mentioned, that is really understanding what I didn't understand of the lonely road that it often is when you're trying to elevate and grow. When you're growing a company as a CEO, you go through those ranks of where everyone in the organization is your buddy, and you're coming in. It's like, hey, I'm a new associate. I'm new to this firm, or whatever it may be. To where you grow to a point where, no, this is my baby, and I have a dream and I have a vision to grow, and not just make it grow, but the great people allow an opportunity for people to grow with them, right? So you're putting all that on your shoulders, right? And it can feel like a lonely road. So you tune into podcasts like Profit First, and you tune into other podcasts to just try to hear, like, what are other people going through, so that you can have that sense of community, so that you can keep moving forward, and realize that you're not alone in this. I would say a lot of times when, talking to a lot of leaders, is really understanding, that core element of who we are, right, as individuals. Understanding, and everyone maybe know this, like, what got you to where you are is not going to be the thing that pushes you to the next level. And being ready to be broken again and again in order to go from level to level. See, one misconception that people believe is that there's a point of arrival in this journey, but there isn't, right? It is the journey that makes everything, right? It is not a goal. It's not, we might have financial goals. Don't get me wrong. We have financial goals. We want our company to grow X percent year over year. We want to have as many in profits. We want to grow. We want to grow in people. We want to grow in business. But even in that, if you look at that, right, the target is always moving based off of where we currently are, right? And that's what a lot of people don't realize. And I know your audience, they have been in it, right? This is something that they do all the time, and just being okay and understanding that, okay, yes, is going to be something that we're evolving in, right? So understanding, like, who I am as an individual, I really had to spend a lot of time about where areas do I need to grow? What areas do I need to tap into myself? And guys, I'm not just talking about going to another class. I'm not just talking about, getting another certification, because oftentimes, I mean, those are great. But if I look at my personal life, like, what habits do I have that are promoting growth? What disciplines do I have that are promoting growth? What am I reading that's promoting growth? What am I watching that's promoting growth? And really analyze those things in every aspect of my life to make sure that it's going to help build me day over day, time over time, as I'm moving forward. So that's how I would start off in answering that question, of just really analyzing where I currently am. There's that self-assessment, where I am, where I want to be. Okay, now what are some of the steps I need to be doing every single day in order to get there?
I love that. That is so deep. I was like taking notes because I want to bring it back. But I think one thing, Ricky, that you said that nobody talks about is being prepared to be broken time and time again, right? And those times that you're broken, those time that you want to throw in a towel, those are your greatest learning opportunities, right?
Yeah.
And so I see so many entrepreneurs, they're like, oh, it didn't work out when I hired. I have hiring PTSD now, or I'm afraid to try this thing again, or do something different because of something that happened. But that's part of the journey, right? It is being able to pick yourself up and keep on going, right, with that. And I love the other thing is what areas do I need to grow in? So looking introspectively instead of blaming everyone else, right? And it's somebody else that isn't doing their job. Where do you need to grow? Is it that
Mm-hmm.
crucial
Mm-hmm.
conversation? Is it being able to confront things? Where do you need to grow? And so I want to peel that back a little bit more, Ricky, about areas that I need to grow in. How do you start to
Mm.
recognize what those specific areas are?
Oh man, that's a really good question, right? And I'll answer it like this. I just have three boys, and I'm always looking for ways to help them in their growth. Um, and without trying to make it too regiment, right? So there's a book that was shared with me called Chop Wood, Carry Water, right? Chop Wood, Carry Water. And then the author's name will come back to me in a minute. But in the book, it's about a gentleman, and I'm going to do a little spoiler alert, but go get the book and read it. It's about a gentleman that wants to become a samurai archer, right? And a master archer. And he goes to a monastery and he's training. And but the training looks like this. Every single day they got to go and chop wood for the fire, and they got to carry water for bathing, washing, all those different things, right? And he went to the sensei and said, "Hey, sensei, I'm wasting a lot of time doing all this chopping wood, carrying water when I can be training." And the sensei was like, "What do you mean wasting time?" He asked the sensei, "So how long would it take for me to become a master, archer?" And the sensei said, "It's going to take you 10 years." He said, "Okay, great. Okay, 10 years. So now if I stop doing this chopping wood and carrying water stuff, like take that out of my schedule and let me dedicate that to my training, then I could probably cut that down to 5 years, right?" And he was like, "No." He said, "Then it's going to take you 20 years. He said, "What? That doesn't make any sense because I'm dedicating everything I have to this." He said, "Listen," he said, the object of it is this. The chopping wood and carrying water is building discipline and is building things inside of you every single day that's going to help you become this master. And if you get rid of that and you just focus on the skills that you're supposed to be doing, going out there to shooting an arrow over and over and over again, and don't focus on those little fundamental elements that are going to help build you, it's going to take you even longer to get you to your goal." So it blew my mind as he was saying that, because I was like, logical sense for me would be like, yeah, let me focus more of my time in my business. Let me focus more of my time training and working out. Let me focus more of my time just isolated to this thing, right? But in reality is, if we don't work on those little things that make us complete as a person, it's going to take us longer to reach the goal that we're aiming for. And he said something very powerful. He said, the little things that make you complete as a person. And if I say little things, right? And for example, that could be, and I start talking about it. How do I start my mornings, right? How am I showing up in my friends, my community? And that could be friends, family, whatever you categorize that as. How am I showing up for myself and daily exercising? How am I showing up for myself with managing, just different aspects of what I'm doing? If those things are neglected, when we get to that point when we feel we're a master at something, everything's going to crumble around us because our foundation is not secure. So he said, the last thing I'll say about this, he said, if you don't get to the point where you can surrender your goal to whatever outcome it will be and put all your attention on the singular focus of what you need to be doing every single day, you'll always be in conflict of what your purpose as you're walking through your days. And that right there, I was just like, wow, because how many of us, right, are, as we're looking at growing our business, looking at, are looking at our profit margins, looking at all these different things that we want to grow. And it's not the big things that people say, oh, increase your SEOs, oh, increase your BD, oh, increase your all these different things, right? People will say, like, no, you probably just need to look at the culture in your office. Because if you shift your culture in a more positive way, people will produce more, right? Or maybe it's, let's spend a little bit more time in taking care of you, so that when you do show up, you're showing up at 100%, right? So it just blew my mind, and just knowing that, and brought me back to the understanding, like, the little things matter. So.
Definitely. And that's an important lesson too there, Ricky. As leaders, we do create the culture, right? We do create the culture. We have an aura around us, right? That either lifts or it puts clouds on us, right? And around our organization. And there are times as leaders that we have to draft for our team members, right? We have to believe in the outcome before they could even begin to try, right? And so really being able to master that internally, and for the guy that was chopping wood, carrying water, he was mastering that endurance, right? He was mastering that persistence, really, and being able to conquer mind over what he wanted to do, right? And being blocked from that, with that. So very, very important note on that. And so now that we know that we have to work on ourselves first, right, as leaders, to show up our best, right, to set the foundation for when we are masters, that we can continue to thrive and have the energy. How do we know what next to do? What is the next thing?
Yeah. Someone told me, and all the CPAs out there would love this one, right? Know the numbers. Know your numbers, right? You need to understand, you need to have visibility, right? We talk about this often with my team: visibility and accountability, right? If you don't understand what you're currently working with, and let's put it out there, right? So in the organization I work with, Hartman Executive Advisors, what we do is we go into small businesses and mid-sized businesses, some large, but I focus more on the construction and real estate space, mid-sized companies. And one thing that we constantly see is they say, man, we really want to look at our financial systems. It's like, okay, why do you want to look at your financial systems? Because when we're trying to pull together reports, we're pulling information from so many different areas. The data is not consistent. We're trying to, we're putting in manual data into Excel. We're using platforms like Excel. We're using these different things. And it's like, okay, you have this organization that's $1 million revenue organization, plus $1 million revenue organization. And we still have Excel sheets, which nothing wrong with Excel. Excel makes everyone work. I love Excel, right? For things. But when you really need to get visibility, right, you may have to increase that, right? You may have to bring in a platform that can give you some reporting that's letting you know, like, on supplies this month, we're running a little tight, right? Which you can't react to it 3 months, 4 months later when you finally pull all the reports together, right? You're already behind now. So just having that visibility early, right? So that you can make the appropriate adjustments. And those adjustments, that's a quick little thing, right? That's not a huge task, right? That's a quick thing of saying, you know what? Let's put something together, whether it's a process or a system, so that I can see things earlier and respond to them earlier, so that we can have a better trajectory going forward. Put ourselves in position to be proactive versus reactive. And I think that's one of the major things that I advise people to do as we start working with them around that area.
Oh, Ricky, I love that. And not just because I'm a CPA, but you're absolutely right. I'll tell you guys this, that the $1 million to like $5 million category, that's where it happens at. That's where your systems that you started with, right? Where you like outsource your accounting, right? You got that once a year accounting, or even monthly, a bookkeeper kind of doing after the fact, recording all deposits as revenue. and
Yeah.
then recording expenses. That's where it doesn't work anymore. Okay. It
Yeah.
doesn't work. And that's the biggest
Yeah.
culprits, the 5
Yeah.
million, because they still want to use what they used at 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. They want to have all these systems that don't connect with their
Oh
accounting
man.
system,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
And the system's giving them one data, it doesn't feed into the accounting system, so they can't figure out what cost of goods sold is. They can't figure out,
Yes.
which jobs are profitable, which ones were not. And
Yes.
and get the level of help for where you're at. Don't try
Hmm.
to use those systems that worked at 100,000, 200,000. You see me
Yes.
getting all excited, now on my soapbox. You need a different system once you're at 1 million, right? You need to probably start taking that accounting in house and really starting to create systems that gives you numbers, right? That allow you to
Yes.
analyze to the minutia. Okay. The
Yes.
minutia becomes
Yes.
very important because that's where you get
You
that
drill
profit
down.
bleed, right?
Yes.
That's where you get that
Yes.
profit lead because you can't see what's going on. So amen to that, Ricky. Amen.
Yes. Yeah. And you said something very important in that is it some people believe is that, hey, it's working. So let's just keep moving forward, right? I've had people where, they're working 60 to 80 hours a week just to reconcile numbers. Now, imagine if you pull that away from that person and allow them to operate in an efficient manner, how much more productive they can be, and then better results that you're getting. And I get it. A lot of people, when we start talking technology, a lot of people start getting nervous though, right? Especially
They're
you're talking to
cheap.
that.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Cheap, but cheap is not going to get you to the next level, right?
Exactly. It's like, wait a minute, do we really need this? Or, is it going to take away an FTE or all these different things? It's like, no, none of that stuff. And here's the thing, right? And I say this so many times, technology is not the answer for everything. It just may be you need to look at your process, right? But as we look at that process, let's look at what can help us make this process firm and assured. Let's make this process more efficient and effective. Let's make this process faster, right? And we can't do that without sometimes incorporating technology in there, which is we are blessed to be able to be in an age where there's an answer for everything that you're doing in your organization around data, around financials, around all that different thing. It's just about finding the right thing. And you said something very important about integration, right? So the next mistake that we see is people say, okay, let's get a system. You get the system and it's like, this system doesn't talk to that system. So where I thought I was saving work, I actually have to download a report from this one, manually take that report, switch it up so that it can talk to another system and then upload it to another system. So now you created, you got some technology, you got some new bells and whistles, you got some new dashboards and everything, but they don't communicate to anything, right? And you have to now go through a manual process. So that's another thing that I look at is how does everything talk together, right? So the second aspect of the ecosystem that you are building in your office. And a lot of times people look at ecosystem as a people personnel type thing, but I look at it as your technology landscape. Like, how does this system interact with this system? What's needed for that connection, right? What's needed for it to, what data do you want to come out of here? And let's identify those KPI, those metrics, whatever you want to see. And let's just make sure we're drawing the dots to make sure they're all connected to the right place. Boom, 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 boom. And then you're left with this beautiful system to where it's doing a lot of that manual, I like to say like that manual work for you, and allows people in your organization now to process and think about what to do with this data versus just being in a reactive mode of, oh, we have to do something quickly to change.
I love that. And it's important, before you pick a software. I said, just like you wouldn't get married to someone you don't know, your software, in some ways, if you start using a software, you might be married to it for a long time. It might cost you, we were talking about CRMs and how if you switch a CRM, you might have to get every single one of your thousands of subscribers to opt in again, right? In order to receive your emails. And so it's important to look at a system that's able to grow with you, what's able to grow with you, and integrate and provide all those needs. So that is really, really good. Where else can we grow as leaders, Ricky?
I would say one thing I've seen, I've had the fortunate ability to and blessed to work with a lot of great organizations. Each one of them, like for what I do and the things that I do now, I was like, I take bits and pieces of what I've learned from them and kind of create that culture around my teams that I have. But I would say I want to kind of highlight a little bit more around the culture, right? I think now more than ever, where when we had that great resignation, we've had people having the options to be remote and hybrid and things like that. There's more options for the employee at this point, right? So if they don't see or feel accepted in an organization or don't feel like they're a part of it, it's easier for them to make the transition versus having that bitter water cooler talk, right? So now you don't even get a chance to sense the disgruntledness because they're not in person with you anymore, right? It's all virtual. So if I disconnect from you virtually, maybe I don't see you for a few meetings for a few weeks, and next thing you know, it turns to a month, and then it's like, wait a minute, then you see a resignation letter, you're like, wait a minute, what? Wait, where did you go? Like, why? Because of just the environment that we're in now. So I would say third, if we look at the third thing, just culture. Like, what are we doing to adjust to the new and world that we live in right now? What are we doing for the people that are new coming into the workforce, right? I'm a director of our leadership development program at my organization, organization I work for, Hartman Executive Advisors, and we get talented, cream of the crop college graduates, right? They're getting offers from the top consultant firms in the world, right? And they are deciding to come to us. And when they come to us, one thing that I'm looking at is it's a totally different dynamic. I'm having conversations with them that you would think that are normal things to have, but they don't have the concept of being in the office. They don't have the concept of open office hours. They don't have the concept of open door policy. They don't have the concept of just going and hanging out by someone's desk, just shooting the breeze and talking about a project or whatever. But they don't have that concept. Everything they have is every meeting's on screen and you're showing up there, right? So that culture that we have to adapt to, we have to adapt to the new world of work. And how much attention are we paying to that, right, as an organization? And at this point, many people may have maybe got it. Maybe you got it together. Maybe you figured it out, right? But I know one thing is that is not going back to what it used to be. And some people are hoping like, oh, maybe we get everybody back in person. Oh, you got to come back. Like, it's not. It's not going to happen. Yeah, you get hybrid. Yeah, that's probably the best we're going to do. But it's not. So how do we now as organizations look at that change management aspect of making sure our culture is inclusive, right, enough to make sure we're attracting great talent, that we are nurturing talent while they're there, that we are allowing people that are leaders to feel that they're a part of the organization, that they're growing with the organization, and that you care more. You care, I won't say more, but you care about their life outside of work, because guess what? A lot of their time now is split between working from their life at home and in the office. So now you got to have a whole new lens on how do I make sure that they're okay there as they were, if they were in the office.
That's interesting. Like, you're right. Some people will never know what it's like to be in the office, right? Because they've been online since the beginning of their career. And I think that's interesting too, because there are some businesses that can't be online, right? Like our doctor's offices,
Correct.
our optometrists,
Yep.
our dentists, they cannot be online. And the question is, how do you make yourself attractive, right? Because now you've got that pool of, people have options. They can be online, they can be in office. And if they're, certain professions like being online and there's a lot of online opportunities, that's the one they're going to choose. So how do you position yourself as being an amazing place to work? Do you have flex
Yeah.
hours? Do you have shorter work days? Are you doing the 4-day week versus the 5-day week? How do you make
Yeah.
yourself
Yeah.
more attractive to still retain that cream of the crop? Because I've heard a lot of people say, hey, I have an office environment. I have to have an office environment. But how do I compete with people that are offering
Correct.
remote positions that are
Correct.
paying just as good, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and again, that's going to be a challenge that you're going to have to face of how do I become that employer of choice?
Yeah.
I know on the accounting firm side, when I owned the accounting firm, we always said, how do we become the employer of choice? And it was, how do we give our people everything they want, was what it was.
Mm.
And that meant salary, that meant outrageous vacation, that meant health benefits, things that other accounting firms just kind of like we're scared to offer,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and that might mean changing your pricing structure, but you can't just change your price structure. How do you become the provider of choice too, right? How do you make
Hmm.
it the no-brainer place to go? Because, hey, if I'm recruiting the best and brightest, we better give you stellar service, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And so how do we make it happen becomes the question versus, no, we can't do this. It's too expensive. How
Hmm.
do we make it happen?
Yeah. You are. Oh my goodness. You are so right. And I would say with that, right, is are you willing? Right? Are you willing to make that adjustment? Because many of our owners now, many surpass me in terms of how long they've been embedded in that working environment, right? Like there's some guys that are just retiring now that they worked where everyone, especially in the engineering field, everyone you just take out a cigarette and just start smoking in the office. Like it was just that's what you did, right? You're sitting there working on plans and smoking and everything else. Like you don't really see that in many buildings around the United States, at least anymore, right? And just that evolution of now it's a change of mind of, and I think the biggest struggle is the work ethic and the work quality you're getting from the people. And I think there's a struggle with can we as owners release ourselves to say, you know what, I'm going to hire well and trust in my hires well enough that I trust that I do a great job hiring the right people that are going to be responsible and that I don't have to worry about, man, if they're not in the office, what are they doing? Right. And I think that is a struggle. That's a struggle part of it as well. Right. And I honestly think it's going to get harder because of just that work ethic that we saw of people showing up to work early just to try to be the first ones there. I tell people, I used to get to work at 7 o'clock, 6:30, 7 o'clock. And this is like a regular quote unquote 9 to 5. Okay. To give perspective. And only reason why I got there is because I was like, I'm going to try to get there before the owner gets there. But I took pride in being like, I want to be the first one in the office and I want to stay past 5 o'clock. All right. So my hours were not 9 to 5. It was 6:30, 6:45 to 6 o'clock sometimes. 12 hours. And I just loved it. And it wasn't like I wasn't overworking. It was just more so I wanted to be in that environment and put everything that I have in it because that's what I saw. I saw the owners opening up the door. And I said, if I want to be an owner one day, then I don't want to be that owner where I'm dragging in at 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock. I'm done working at 2 o'clock. Don't email me. I want to be that owner that leads by example. Like this is my baby. I want you guys to see like how I take care of it. So, just I said, my baby, when you have a toddler or infant, they're up all hours of the night and you have to attend to it, right? Yeah, as tired as you could be, they're up all hours of the night. And I want to be able to embody that type of characteristic and share it. But now it's hard for people to replicate that. How are they replicating that? Right? How do they see it? And I think one of the biggest areas of and I'll stop digressing after this. I think one of the biggest areas of worry, I spent a lot of time in my career working with in the workforce development area around the construction, architecture, engineering community. And it was a big push to how do we build the pipeline for people to come into the trades. Now, I don't know about you, but if you have people that don't even want to come into an office, they want to work remote, how much more difficult is it going to be for someone to come out, not even to an office, to come outside and do manual labor, right? It's just going to be, the pool is shrinking more and more to available uh, talented people, just because the world is shifting. And so how do we navigate ourselves to be able to be successful with this shift, right? And you nailed it, right? Just this culture is, you got to be a culture where you're open for that change.
Definitely. And it's such a great reminder about just that the world is constantly changing, you know. I like, for some strange reason, I just had a visualization of dinosaurs smoking in the office, you know. um, it's just rapidly changing, right, every day. I mean, you know, and I look at things that are happening now with, we see the United Auto Workers on strike, right? And they're looking at their CEO and going, he just got a 40% raise. Why can't I have a 40% raise? And you're seeing the writers strike, on the guilds, right, in Hollywood.
In Hollywood,
and they're like, no, you can't use a electronic picture of me and chat GPT and use my script. No. And it's just, it's really about creating an environment where everybody wins. And I love that you talked about where, as leaders, we have to set the example. I think like I go contra culture to this. I think a lot of people have this vision of them like, just kind of collecting an annuity without really setting pace and doing the work to establish culture. And I'm like, you establish culture because people see who you are, right? And they mimic that. Nobody's going to want to work in a business that nobody cares about. And if you're not there, nobody cares, right?
Exactly.
And you don't have to physically be there, but you have to show your passion. You have to show where you're having those hard conversations, where you're putting the right people in the right places to manage your team when you're away and not present. And it takes work. It's not going to the office playing solitaire. And I get that it's not a very popular stance to have, but reality is, if you want to create a powerful team, that's where it starts.
Yeah.
It starts with you setting the example.
Yeah, you're so right on that. And I would just encourage everyone that's even listening about that whole example piece. Like, everyone is watching. Everyone is watching what you do, how you show up. And I was listening to something yesterday just about energy and transfer of energy. And as leaders, as much as I started off saying it's a lonely road, we have to find a way to make sure we're always showing up, right? Because that day we don't, and that person's watching, and it's just like, that can create that season of doubt in them. Like, wow, is this where I need to be, or whatever it may be? I don't know how it transpires, but imagine us as leaders, we show up with that energy every single day. That energy of like, not just I care about your work, but I care about you, right? Not that, hey, we're doing this together. Like, we're building, we're growing together. You're excited about life. Yeah, everything. Not, and I didn't say anywhere about everything is perfect. I didn't even say that you're not in the red. I didn't even say any of that. But what I'm saying is that you look at not things as a problem, but as a puzzle. And it's like, hey, there's no greater joy some families have than having a huge puzzle in the middle of the kitchen table, and let's all put this puzzle together, right? Everyone may have a piece. Let's put your piece here, put your piece there, boom, 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 and boom, create this picture. But if you start that puzzle of 5,000 pieces with like, man, we can do this. There's no way how we could do this, right? And carry that attitude through, it's going to take much longer for you really to just come together. So being able to transfer that positive energy, that's just the start of just setting that culture, setting that tone, and letting people know that, hey, I care about you. I care about the work that you do. I care about the work you do for us. And we're going to grow this thing together.
I love it. I love it. And I love it. Just really, people leave bosses, right? They don't necessarily leave companies, they leave bosses,
Yes.
they leave
Yes.
cultures, right?
Yes.
Um, and so that's just something to keep in mind with that.
Yeah.
It is personal when they do leave. So,
Yeah.
Ricky, one of the things that I love to ask is, you know, if you could leave our viewers and our listeners with one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice, what would that be? And it can be personal, it can be business. What would that be?
I will relate it to something that I'm dealing with now. And it goes back to understanding that you have to be broken at each level, right? Um, and one thing that I start doing now is I look forward to those broken moments because I know what's on the other side of mending that brokenness. When anyone knows when you break a bone, right, and it comes back, it heals stronger. Now I'm saying that out here. I went and spoke to a whole bunch of doctors one time and I said something medically wrong. So if any doctors listen to this and it's not completely right, you get the point. Okay. So, just being able to be stronger on the other side of it. And really being okay and trusting in that process of there's no mountain that is just going to be completely just that pinnacle. There's no, and I hate to say this, I don't want to be morbid on this show, but that pinnacle, if you're a leader and you're striving, that pinnacle at the top of the mountain is when you're done. Life is done on earth, right? Before you get there, there's going to be a whole bunch of hills and valleys, hills and valleys, hills and valleys, hills and valleys. And as you're going on that, yeah, you're going to be climbing higher, but it's going to be hills and valleys. And sometimes you may drop lower than what you climb. And sometimes you make a climb higher than you low, but expect the hills and valleys and be able to have a posture of peace through it all. And not peace saying like, oh, you have it all figured out, but peace knowing that this is just part of the process. So that's what I will leave with your listeners today.
I love it. Such good advice there. Such good advice. Now, Ricky, how do our viewers and our listeners, how do they find you to learn more, to work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is another whole dynamic I didn't even talk about in this show. Um, so for all my technology stuff and things around technology and coming into your organization and taking an assessment of looking at, where are some opportunities to improve the efficiencies, create more visibility and accountability, you want to reach out to me at Hartman Executive Advisors. So you can just go onto the website. You'll see all the information there. I'm one of the senior advisors there. I've been there for the last couple of years. I help run our construction and real estate team. So if there's any construction and real estate guys that are out there, developers, I'll be the one working with you. But we have multiple teams. We have 11 different industries that we support. Other people that are just like me, are even more smarter than I am, I would say, in this space. And we love just really working hand in hand with these individuals and companies in the finance world, healthcare world, education, nonprofit, the list goes on. So contact me there for that. If you're looking for listening to other journeys of people that are traveling on their road to success, you can reach out to me on the Success Journey Show. Me and my partner started this company and podcast 5 years ago. We're celebrating 5 years this year. It started off just as a podcast, and it has exploded into a real estate development company, and also helping people along there. The smaller companies, help them digital transformation, getting a little websites or whatever it may be, right? Just to help them along their way. Nothing big in that space, but really helping them along their way. So you want to reach out to me to the Success Journey Show, and you'll see all my information there. And thirdly, and I got to put this plug in here if you don't mind, but along my journeys, one thing I help do is I help coaches, sports coaches, transfer their knowledge into tools and aids that they can use to help train their players. You can see me at The Hit Doctor MD, The Hit Doctor MD, MD standing for Maryland, the state of Maryland. And we've launched our first product back in January called the Elite Swing Trainer for softball and baseball, helping them improve in their hitting technique. So that is going that is going crazy. It's going worldwide right now. We are excited. Orders every single day from all across from Japan to oh my goodness, to California to Florida. I mean, everywhere in the world has seen this thing and has been purchasing it. So we're really excited about the growth of that. So that's all the areas you can reach out to me.
That is so awesome. And what we're going to do is we're going to put Ricky's contact information in our show notes so that you guys can go back and contact him to be directed to the different areas that you may need support in. So
Yes.
Thank you so much, Ricky, for joining us today and sharing your knowledge.
No, thank you. And thank you for what you're doing with this platform. I think it's so important. I picked up the book Profit First 2 years ago. I can't get the time right. Maybe a year ago. And I could not put it down. I was like, because like I said, I'm an engineering guy, but I'm not the numbers guy. So I was like, really, like, how do I do this? Like, what am I doing here? And it really has helped me explode and grow. So I really appreciate what you're doing and what you're bringing to the space. And thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Ricky. It's an amazing cash management system.
Yes.
Until next time.